The massive warship Eternal Conquest floated silently in the cold darkness of space. Its black metal hull stretched for miles, covered in weapon ports and armor plating that could resist the strongest attacks. This was the flagship of the galactic Dominion, the most powerful vessel in their vast fleet. On the bridge, Admiral Kale stood with his forearms crossed behind his back. His tall, gray-skinned frame towered over the control stations where his officers worked. Two pairs of glowing yellow eyes scanned the tactical displays that showed the recent battles. Every screen told the same story. The human colonies were falling one by one. "Another world has surrendered," reported Commander Voss from his station. His voice carried satisfaction as he updated the war progress. "The humans on Kepler 7 have stopped fighting. Their orbital defenses are destroyed." Admiral Kale nodded slowly. The war against humanity had been easier than expected. These small, weak creatures had put up some resistance at first, but their primitive technology could not match the Dominion's advanced weapons. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their soldiers died easily. Soon the entire human species would be nothing more than a memory. "How many human worlds remain?" Kale asked. "Only 12, Admiral. Most are small farming colonies with no military value. We estimate complete victory within 2 standard months." The bridge fell quiet except for the soft humming of machinery. Through the massive viewing windows, stars glittered like tiny diamonds. Against the black void, Kale felt pleased with their progress. The Dominion Council would be happy with how quickly he had handled the human problem. Suddenly, red warning lights began flashing throughout the bridge. A sharp alarm sound cut through the peaceful atmosphere. Officers quickly turned to their screens, their fingers dancing over control panels. "Report," Kale commanded, his voice sharp and demanding. Lieutenant Hera checked her security displays, her purple face growing pale. "Admiral, we have a breach. Someone has entered Sector 7 through the waste disposal port." "Impossible. Our shields protect every inch of this ship." "The intruder bypassed the shields somehow. Security cameras show a single figure moving through the lower corridors." Kale walked quickly to the security station. On the screen, he could see a dark figure walking through their ship's hallways. The person wore a black combat suit that covered their entire body. A reflective mask hid their face, showing only Kale's own reflection when the cameras caught the right angle. "Species identification?" Kale asked. "Scanning now," Hera replied, working her controls. After a moment, she looked up with confusion. "Admiral, the bioscanner indicates this is a human." The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to look at the screen. A human had somehow entered their most secure warship, thousands of light years from any human world. One human? "Commander," Voss laughed. "This must be some kind of mistake. How could a single human breach our defenses?" On the screen, the masked figure moved with smooth, careful steps. Unlike the clumsy humans they had fought in battle, this one moved like a predator hunting prey. The figure reached a junction where 2 corridors met and stopped. Slowly, the human turned toward the security camera and seemed to look directly at them through the screen. "Send a security team to capture the intruder," Kale ordered. "I want to question this human before we dispose of it." "Yes, Admiral." Voss activated his communication device. "Security Team Alpha, respond to Sector 7, 1 human intruder. Take it alive if possible." On the screen, they watched as 12 Dominion soldiers ran toward the human's location. These were elite warriors trained from birth to fight and kill. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through metal and wore armor that could stop most weapons. 12 against 1 should be no contest at all. The soldiers reached the corridor where the human waited. Their leader, Sergeant Knox, raised his weapon and shouted commands in the Dominion language. The humans stood perfectly still, hands at their sides. Seeming to listen. Then everything changed. The human moved faster than anyone on the bridge thought possible. In one smooth motion, the figure pulled out a simple metal weapon, something primitive that fired solid bullets instead of energy beams. The first shot hit Sergeant Knox in the chest, somehow penetrating his advanced armor. The soldier fell backward. His plasma rifle clattering across the floor, the other soldiers opened fire, filling the corridor with bright energy beams. But the human was no longer there. Like a shadow, the figure had rolled behind a support beam and was moving again. More shots rang out, not the high-pitched whine of plasma weapons, but the deep boom of the human's primitive gun. One by one, the elite soldiers fell. Their armor, designed to stop the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, seemed useless against simple metal bullets fired at high speed. The human moved between them like a dancer, always in motion, never where they expected. In less than 30 seconds, all 12 soldiers lay on the corridor floor. "How is this possible?" whispered Lieutenant Hera. The human stood among the fallen soldiers, completely calm. The figure picked up one of the plasma rifles and examined it for a moment before tossing it aside. Then the human looked up at the security camera again and began walking deeper into the ship. "Send more teams," Kale ordered, his voice tight with anger and confusion. "Admiral, should we seal off the sections ahead of the intruder?" "No, I want to see where this human is going. Track its movement and send teams to intercept." "Commander." Voss worked his controls, dispatching more soldiers throughout the ship. "Security teams Beta, Gamma, and Delta are moving to intercept. That's 36 more soldiers, Admiral." On the screens, they watched the human continue through their ship. The figure moved with purpose, as if following a specific route. This was not random destruction or desperate escape. The human was going somewhere particular. The next group of soldiers met the same fate as the first. Despite their numbers and superior weapons, they fell to the masked intruder's simple but deadly efficiency. The human fought like someone who had studied Dominion tactics for years, anticipating their every move. "This is impossible," Commander Voss said, watching his soldiers fail again and again. "No human should fight like this." Admiral Kale stared at the screens, a cold feeling growing in his chest. This was not the weak, primitive species they had been crushing across the galaxy. This human fought with skill that matched their best warriors. Maybe exceeded it. "Where is it heading?" he asked. Lieutenant Hera checked the ship's layout against the human's path. "The intruder is moving toward the upper sections, Admiral. If it continues this route... She paused, her face growing more pale. "It's heading for the restricted zones." The restricted zones contained their most sensitive equipment and information. If a human reached those areas, the consequences could be devastating. Kale realized this was not just a random attack. Someone had sent this human with a specific mission. On the screen, the masked figure continued walking through their ship, leaving a trail of defeated soldiers behind. And with each step, the human moved closer to secrets that were never meant for alien eyes. Admiral Kale gripped the railing in front of him, his knuckles turning white. For the first time since the war began, he felt something he had not expected when fighting humans. He felt afraid. Admiral Kale pressed his hand against the communication panel on his command chair. His voice echoed throughout the massive warship as he spoke to all sections at once. "All security personnel, this is Admiral Kale. We have a hostile intruder moving through Sectors 7 through 12. This is not a drill. Use maximum force. Seal all blast doors and flood every corridor with security teams." Throughout the Eternal Conquest, hundreds of Dominion soldiers grabbed their weapons and ran to their positions. These were not the regular troops who had failed before. These were the ship's elite guards, warriors who had served on the Flagship for decades. They carried the heaviest weapons and wore the strongest armor available. "On the bridge, Commander." Voss coordinated the massive response. His fingers moved quickly over his control panel as he directed teams throughout the ship. "Admiral, I have positioned 40 soldiers in Sector 9, 35 in Sector 10, and 50 more in the corridors between. The human cannot possibly fight through so many." Lieutenant Hera monitored her security screens, tracking the masked figure's movement. "The intruder has stopped at Junction Point 7 Alpha. It appears to be examining the wall panel there." "Admiral." Kale watched the screen carefully. The human stood in front of what looked like a simple maintenance panel. But Kale knew that panel contained access codes for the ship's internal navigation system. How could a human know about such things? What is it doing? He asked. Unknown, Admiral. The figure appears to be connecting some kind of device to our systems. On screen, they could see the human had attached a small rectangular object to the wall panel. Lights blinked on the device as it worked. After a few moments, the human removed the device and continued walking. Security breach, announced the ship's computer voice. Navigation data has been accessed without authorization. Commander Voss looked confused. Why would a human want our navigation information? They cannot possibly escape this ship. Admiral Kale felt the cold feeling in his chest grow stronger. This human was not trying to escape. It was gathering intelligence. Someone had sent this intruder to steal their most sensitive information. Has the human accessed any other systems? Kale asked. Lieutenant Hera checked her readings. Yes, Admiral. The intruder has connected to data ports in 3 different locations, each time for exactly 90 seconds. What kind of information is stored at those locations? Hera's face grew pale as she read her screen. Battle plans, Admiral. Ship deployment. Schedules and our attack patterns against human colonies. The bridge fell silent. Every officer understood what this meant. If this information reached other humans, they would know exactly how the Dominion planned to finish the war. Human forces could prepare defenses or even launch counterattacks. Stop that human now, Kale ordered. I don't care how many soldiers it takes. The first wave of reinforcements reached the human's location in Sector 9. 40 elite soldiers surrounded the masked figure from all directions. Their plasma rifles charged with deadly energy as they closed in. The human stood in the center of the corridor, seeming calm despite being outnumbered 40-1. The figure slowly reached behind its back and pulled out 2 weapons, not just the simple gun from before, but also a long knife with a curved blade. Surrender now, shouted Captain Rex, the leader of the security team. You are surrounded and outnumbered. There is no escape. The human tilted its head slightly as if considering the offer. Then, without warning, the figure threw the knife. With incredible accuracy, the blade flew through the air and struck Captain Rex in the throat, dropping him instantly. What happened next shocked everyone watching from the bridge. The human moved through the group of soldiers like water flowing around stones. Every movement was precise and deadly. The figure seemed to know exactly where each soldier would aim. Before they fired their weapons, the primitive gun boomed again and again. Soldiers fell with each shot, their advanced armor offering no protection. The human moved constantly, rolling behind cover, jumping over obstacles, always staying one step ahead of the plasma beams that filled the air around it. Within minutes, all 40 soldiers lay on the corridor floor. Impossible, whispered Commander Voss. No single warrior should be able to defeat so many trained soldiers. On the screen, the human picked up its knife and cleaned the blade on a fallen soldier's uniform. Then the figure looked directly at the security camera and made a gesture that needed no translation. It was a challenge. Send the next wave, Admiral Kale said through gritted teeth. Admiral, perhaps we should consider sealing off the sections ahead and using gas to... No, I want to see what this human is truly capable of. Send every available soldier. The second wave consisted of 60 soldiers, the ship's best fighters. They approached more carefully this time, using proper military formations and coordinated attacks. Their leaders had studied the security footage and planned better tactics. It made no difference. The human fought like a creature born for war. Every movement showed years of training and experience. The figure used the ship's own structure as a weapon, causing soldiers to accidentally fire at each other in the confusion. The humans seemed to understand their technology better than they did, using their own plasma rifles when possible and discarding them when more effective weapons were available. One by one, the elite soldiers fell. Their plasma beams scorched the walls and ceiling, but never seemed to hit their target. The human was always somewhere else, moving like a shadow through their ranks. Lieutenant Hera watched her screens in growing horror. Admiral, the human has now defeated over 100 of our best soldiers. Our security force is being destroyed. How? Many soldiers do we have left? Approximately 200 combat-ready personnel remain on the ship. Admiral Kale stared at the screen where the human was now walking through a corridor filled with fallen Dominion warriors. The figure moved with the same calm purpose as before, as if fighting 100 trained soldiers was merely a minor inconvenience. What kind of training could produce such a fighter? Commander Voss asked quietly. I don't know, Kale replied. But I intend to find out. On the screen, the human reached another data access point and connected the same small device as before. More ship information flowed into the human's possession, weapon specifications, crew locations, even the personal files of senior officers. The intruder is learning everything about our ship, Lieutenant Hera reported. At this rate, it will know our systems better than we do. The human finished downloading data and continued moving deeper into the ship. The figure was no longer in the lower sections where maintenance workers and junior officers belonged. Now the human was entering areas where only senior command staff were allowed. Where is it going now? Kale asked. Hera traced the human's path on her navigation display. The intruder is moving toward Deck 5, Admiral, the command sections. Admiral Kale felt his blood turn cold. Deck 5 contained the ship's most sensitive areas, communication centers, battle planning rooms, and classified research facilities. If the human reached those locations, the damage could be beyond calculation. All remaining security personnel converge on Deck 5, he ordered. Establish defensive positions at every access point. This human will not advance any further. But even as he gave the orders, Admiral Kale suspected they would not be enough. This human had already proven capable of impossible things. Whatever training or enhancement had created this warrior, it was far beyond anything the Dominion had encountered before. On screen, the masked figure continued walking through their ship, moving steadily towards secrets that were never meant for human eyes. And with each step, Admiral Kale became more certain that they were not hunting the human was hunting them. The remaining Dominion soldiers took their positions on Deck 5 with weapons ready. These were the last defenders between the human intruder and the ship's most secret areas. Captain Zane, the senior security officer, checked his plasma rifle one final time as he waited in the main corridor. Remember, he told his soldiers through their communication devices, this human has defeated everyone sent against it so far. Do not underestimate the enemy. Fire at the first sign of movement. Behind the defensive lines, Admiral Kale watched from a mobile command station he had set up near the restricted zones. He needed to see this human face to face when it finally reached this level. Commander Voss stood beside him, studying tactical displays that showed their remaining forces. All access points are covered, Admiral, Voss reported. The human cannot reach the classified sections without going through our soldiers. This human has surprised us before, Kale replied grimly. Stay alert. The security screen showed the masked figure climbing through a maintenance shaft to reach Deck 5. The human moved with the same calm efficiency as before. Completely unworried about the heavy defenses waiting above, Lieutenant Hera monitored the human's progress from her portable station. The intruder is approaching access point 7. Captain Zane's team is in position. On screen, they watched the human emerge from the maintenance shaft into a side corridor. 20 soldiers immediately surrounded the figure from both directions, their weapons charged and ready. This time they did not waste time with surrender demands. All 20 soldiers fired at once. The corridor filled with bright plasma beams that should have burned the human to ashes instantly. But when the energy faded, the figure was gone. Somehow, the human had moved during the split second between the soldiers, pulling their triggers and the beams reaching their target. Captain Zane spun around, looking frantically for the intruder. Where did it go? Scan all corridors. His answer came in the form of gunshots from behind his position. The human had somehow circled around their defensive line and was attacking from their rear. Soldiers fell one by one as the primitive bullets found gaps in their armor that plasma weapons never could. Impossible, breathed Commander Voss as he watched the security feeds. How did it move so fast? The human fought through Captain Zane's entire team with the same deadly skill they had seen before. But this time, Admiral Kale noticed something different. The figure was not just fighting randomly. Each movement brought the human closer to one specific area. "Lieutenant Hera, what section is the intruder moving toward?" Hera checked her navigation display, then looked up with shock. "Admiral, the human is heading directly for the sacred chamber." Every officer on the command team froze. The sacred chamber was the most holy place on any Dominion warship. It contained the names and histories of their greatest warriors, heroes whose deeds had shaped their entire civilization. Only the highest ranking officers were allowed to enter, and then only for the most important ceremonies. "That's impossible," Commander Voss said. "The sacred chamber is protected by security systems that would kill any unauthorized person who tried to enter. Besides, how could a human even know such a place exists?" Admiral Kale stared at the security screen, watching the masked figure walk calmly through the bodies of fallen soldiers. A terrible thought was forming in his mind, but he pushed it away. No human could possibly know about their most sacred traditions. The human reached the entrance to the sacred chamber, a massive door made of polished metal and covered with ancient Dominion symbols. These symbols told the story of their people's greatest victories and most honored heroes. The door should have been impossible for any non-Dominion being to open. The human walked directly to a specific symbol on the door and pressed it. With one finger, the massive door began to slide open. "How?" whispered Lieutenant Hera. "The door requires genetic identification from approved Dominion officers. No human DNA could possibly activate those systems. Unless," Admiral Kale said slowly, his voice filled with growing horror, "the system recognizes something else about this human." The door finished opening, revealing the sacred chamber beyond. The room was filled with soft blue light that came from thousands of holographic displays. Each display showed the name and achievements of a Dominion hero, warriors whose names were spoken with reverence throughout their empire. The human walked into the sacred space without hesitation. Admiral Kale and his officers watched in stunned silence as the intruder moved through the chamber. The figure ignored most of the displays, walking with purpose toward one specific section. This was not random exploration. The human knew exactly where to go. "Follow the human with the internal cameras," Kale ordered. "I need to see what it's looking for." The security cameras inside the sacred chamber tracked the masked figure as it walked deeper into the holy space. The human passed displays honoring ancient generals, legendary pilots, and warriors who had died saving entire worlds. All were ignored. Finally, the human stopped in front of one particular memorial display. The holographic image showed information about a single warrior, someone whose achievements had earned a place among the greatest heroes in Dominion history. Lieutenant Hera read the display information aloud, her voice shaking. "The memorial honors a warrior named Dae Kim, first human to join the Sacred Order, died in service to the Dominion 300 years ago." The words hit Admiral Kale like a physical blow. Dae Kim had been a legend, a human warrior who had fought alongside the Dominion during their expansion wars. He had saved countless Dominion lives and earned respect that no other alien species had ever achieved. The memorial display showed Dae Kim's greatest battles, how he had held a mountain pass against impossible odds, how he had rescued an entire Dominion colony ship from pirates, how he had sacrificed his own safety to save a Dominion general during the Battle of Seven Suns. But most importantly, the display showed the promise the Dominion had made to Dae Kim in exchange for his service. They had sworn that his people, humanity, would be welcomed as equals in the galactic community. They had promised that humans would be protected and honored for all time. Now, 300 years later, the Dominion was systematically exterminating the human species. The masked figure stood silently before the memorial for several long moments. Then, slowly, the human reached up and began to remove the reflective mask. "No," Admiral Kale whispered, though he did not fully understand why he felt such dread. The mask came away, revealing the face underneath. The human was young, perhaps 25 Earth years old. His features were clearly Asian, with strong cheekbones and dark eyes that held both determination and deep sadness. His black hair was cut short in a military style, but it was not just his appearance that made Admiral Kale's blood run cold. It was the resemblance. The young human looked almost exactly like Dae Kim. Lieutenant Hera compared the face on screen with the memorial display. Admiral, the facial structure is nearly identical. This could be a descendant. Could be? Commander Voss asked. How do we verify such a thing? Their answer came from the human himself. The young man spoke for the first time since entering their ship, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's audio systems. My name is Min Kim, he said in perfect Dominion language. I am the great-great-grandson of Dae Kim, the warrior you claim to honor in this sacred place. He turned to look directly at one of the security cameras, as if he could see Admiral Kale through the lens. I have come to ask why you honor my ancestor's memory while you murder his people. The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Every officer on Admiral Kale's command team stood frozen, unable to respond. They all knew the story of Dae Kim, they all knew the promises their ancestors had made, and they all knew how completely those promises had been broken. Min Kim turned back to his ancestor's memorial, his expression filled with pain that ran deeper than any weapon could cause. Great-grandfather, he said quietly, I have come to finish what you started. But this time, I will make sure our people survive to see the honor you were promised. Admiral Kale realized with growing terror that they were not dealing with a simple infiltrator or saboteur. They were facing the living descendant of their greatest hero, a warrior whose family had been betrayed by the very people his ancestor had died to serve. The war against humanity had just become infinitely more complicated. Admiral Kale stared at the screen in complete silence. His forearms hung limp at his sides as he watched Min Kim stand before his ancestor's memorial. The young human's resemblance to the legendary Dae Kim was impossible to deny. The same strong jaw, the same determined eyes, even the same way of holding his shoulders straight despite facing overwhelming odds. Commander Voss broke the silence first. Admiral, this changes everything. If this human truly is Dae Kim's descendant, then by our own sacred laws? I know what our laws say, Kale interrupted sharply. His voice carried anger, but it was not directed at the human on the screen. It was directed at his own people and their terrible betrayal of honor. Lieutenant Hera checked her historical databases, her fingers moving quickly over her control panel. Admiral, I have confirmed the bloodline records. Dae Kim did have children. Before his death, the genetic markers match. This is definitely his descendant. On the screen, Min Kim continued to study his ancestor's memorial. The holographic display showed Dae Kim's greatest achievements in glowing letters that filled the sacred chamber with soft light. Each accomplishment was a reminder of how much the Dominion owed to this one human warrior. Read the full memorial record, Admiral Kale ordered. I want to hear exactly what promises we made. Lieutenant Hera accessed the complete historical file. Her voice shook as she read the ancient text aloud. In recognition of the extraordinary service of Dae Kim, the Dominion Council hereby grants the following honors. First, Dae Kim is welcomed as the first non-Dominion member of the Sacred Order. Second, his name shall be remembered in our most holy places for all time. Third, his people shall be protected and welcomed as equals in the galactic community. The words echoed through the command center like an accusation. Every officer present knew that the third promise had been completely broken. Instead of protecting humanity, the Dominion was in the process of destroying them entirely. There's more, Hera continued reading. The treaty states that any descendant of Dae Kim who proves their bloodline shall be granted the same honors as their ancestor. They shall be welcomed as friends and given all the rights of a Sacred Order member. Commander Voss looked horrified. That means this human has the legal right to challenge our actions. By our own laws, he can demand answers for what we have done to his people. On screen, Min Kim finished reading his ancestor's memorial and turned to face the security camera directly. His dark eyes seemed to look straight through the lens at Admiral Kale himself. I know you are watching, Min Kim said calmly. I know you understand what this memorial means. My ancestor believed in your honor. He trusted your promises. He died thinking his people would be safe under your protection. The young human walked closer to the camera, his face filling the screen. Instead, you have spent the last 50 years systematically murdering every human you could find. You have destroyed our colonies, killed our children, and scattered the survivors across the galaxy. Admiral Kale felt shame burning in his chest like acid. Everything Min Kim said was true. The Dominion had not just broken their promise to Dae Kim, they had done the exact opposite of what they had sworn to do. But I am not here just to accuse you of breaking your word, Min Kim continued. I am here to give you a chance to honor it. He reached into his combat suit and pulled out a small object that made every Dominion officer gasp in recognition. It was a ceremonial blade, forged in the ancient style used only by Sacred Order members. The weapon gleamed with the special metal that could only be found in the Dominion home system. This belonged to my ancestor, Min Kim said, holding the blade so the cameras could see it clearly. It was given to him when he joined the Sacred Order. It has been passed down through my family for 300 years, along with the story of his service and your promises. Lieutenant Hera checked her historical records again. Admiral, that blade matches the description of the ceremonial weapon given to Dae Kim. It was thought to be lost when he died. Not lost, Min Kim said, as if he could hear their conversation. Kept safe by his family, waiting for the day when it might be needed again. The human attached the ancient blade to his belt alongside his modern weapons. The combination of old and new, sacred and practical, made a powerful statement about who he was and why he had come. I have studied your history, Min Kim said. I know your laws and traditions better than most of your own people. I know that a Sacred Order member has the right to challenge any Dominion leader who acts without honor. Admiral Kale's blood turned to ice water. He knew exactly what Min Kim was talking about. The challenge of honor was an ancient law that allowed Sacred Order members to demand single combat with any Dominion official who betrayed their sacred duties. By the authority granted to my bloodline, I formally challenge the commanders of this ship to answer for their crimes against my people. You have broken the most sacred promise ever made by your government. You have dishonored the memory of my ancestor and betrayed everything the Sacred Order stands for. Min Kim drew the ceremonial blade, and even through the security camera, Admiral Kale could see the weapon's ancient power. The metal seemed to glow with its own inner light, responding to the touch of Dae Kim's descendant. You have 3 choices, the human continued. First, you can accept my challenge and face me in single combat according to your own laws. Second, you can immediately order all Dominion forces to stop their attacks on human worlds and begin honoring your ancient promises. Third, you can continue as you are and face the consequences of your dishonor. Commander Voss leaned close to Admiral Kale. Admiral, what are the consequences he speaks of? What happens if we refuse both the challenge and his demands? Kale knew the answer, and it filled him with dread. According to Sacred Order law, if we refuse his legitimate challenge, he gains the right to act as judge and executioner. He can kill any of us without legal consequences. But that's just one human against our entire crew. One human who has already defeated over 100 of our best soldiers, Kale reminded him grimly. One human who knows our ship better than we do. One human who carries the blessed weapon of our greatest hero. On screen, Min Kim sheathed the ceremonial blade and picked up his modern weapons again. I will give you 1 hour to decide. But know this, I did not come here to negotiate or make deals. I came here to honor my ancestors' memory and to ensure my people survive. He looked directly into the camera one final time. My great-great-grandfather believed in your honor. He was wrong. But I believe in the power of justice, and I will not leave this ship until justice is done. The screen went dark as Min Kim disabled the security camera. Admiral Kale and his officers stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. They were no longer dealing with a simple enemy infiltrator. They were facing the rightful heir to their most sacred honors, a warrior who had the legal and moral authority to hold them accountable for their crimes, and he was coming for them. Admiral Kale paced back and forth in his command center, his forearms clasped tightly behind his back. The hour that Min Kim had given them was almost over, and he still had not decided how to respond to the humans' challenge. Every option seemed to lead to disaster. Commander Voss watched the security screens that showed their remaining soldiers taking defensive positions throughout the ship. After losing so many warriors to one human fighter, the crew's confidence was badly shaken. "Admiral, we could seal off the sacred chamber and trap the human inside," Voss suggested. "Our emergency containment systems could lock down that entire section." "And then what?" Kale asked. "Keep him prisoner forever? Execute him in violation of our own sacred laws?" "That human has the legal right to challenge us. If we refuse to honor our own traditions, we become no better than common murderers." Lieutenant Hera looked up from her communication station. "Admiral, I'm receiving messages from other ships in the fleet. Word is spreading about what happened here. Some captains are asking questions about our war against humanity." Kale felt his stomach twist with dread. If other Dominion commanders learned the full truth about Dae Kim and their broken promises, it could tear their entire military apart. Many officers still believed in the old values of honor and duty. "What kind of questions?" he asked. "Captain, Tor on the battleship Relentless wants to know if we really made treaty promises to protect humans. Captain Yex is asking for historical records about something called the Sacred Order obligations." The situation was spiraling out of control. Kale realized that Min Kim's challenge was not just about this one ship. It was about forcing the entire Dominion to face what they had become. Suddenly, the ship's communication system activated on its own. Min Kim's voice filled every corridor and cabin throughout the massive warship. "Attention all crew members of the Eternal Conquest. This is Min Kim, great-great-grandson of Dae Kim, member of the Sacred Order. I speak to you now not as your enemy, but as the descendant of a warrior who died in service to your people." In the command center, Admiral Kale tried to cut off the transmission, but the human had somehow taken control of their entire communication network. 300 years ago, my ancestor fought alongside your warriors in the Great Expansion Wars. He saved Dominion lives at the cost of his own safety. He rescued your colonies from pirates and invaders. He held the line when your own soldiers would have fallen. Throughout the ship, Dominion crew members stopped what they were doing to listen. Many recognized the name Dae Kim from their military history lessons. He was a legend, a hero whose story every young Dominion soldier learned during training. In exchange for his service, your leaders made sacred promises. They swore that humanity would be protected and welcomed as equals. They gave their word that my people would never be harmed by Dominion forces. Min Kim's voice carried pain that cut through the ship like a blade. Those promises were lies. For 50 years you have hunted my people across the galaxy. You have destroyed our homes, killed our families, and scattered the survivors like animals. Some crew members began to look uncomfortable. They had been told that humans were dangerous enemies who threatened Dominion security. They had never heard about any promises or treaties. "But I have not come here seeking revenge," Min Kim continued. "I have come seeking justice. I challenge Admiral Kale to face me in single combat according to the ancient laws of the Sacred Order. Let him answer for the crimes committed in his name." Admiral Kale realized he could no longer avoid making a decision. His entire crew was listening. Other ships in the fleet were monitoring their communications. Whatever he chose would be witnessed by thousands of Dominion personnel. "Admiral," Commander Voss whispered urgently, "you don't have to accept. We could overwhelm him with sheer numbers." "And prove that we have no honor left at all?" Kale replied bitterly. "That human has already shown he can defeat any number of our soldiers, but more importantly, he is right. We have broken our most sacred promises." Lieutenant Hera looked up with worry. "Admiral, single combat with a Sacred Order member is a fight to the death. There are no surrenders, no mercy. One of you must die." Kale nodded grimly. He understood the stakes perfectly. But he also understood that this was about more than just his own life. This was about what kind of people the Dominion wanted to be. He activated his own communication system to respond to Min Kim's challenge. Attention all crew. This is Admiral Kale. I have heard the words of Min Kim, and I acknowledge the truth in his accusations. The Dominion has indeed broken sacred promises made to his ancestor. Shocked murmurs echoed throughout the ship. Many crew members had never heard their admiral admit to any wrongdoing, let alone crimes against honor. I accept the challenge of single combat. We will meet on the main hangar deck in 30 minutes. All crew members may witness if they choose. Commander Voss looked horrified. Admiral, you can't possibly defeat that human in combat. He has already proven his skills against our best soldiers. Perhaps, Kale replied calmly, but I can face him with honor. That is more than I have done for the past 50 years. 25 minutes later, Admiral Kale walked into the ship's largest hangar bay. The massive space could hold dozens of fighter craft, but now it served as an arena. Hundreds of crew members lined the walls, watching in tense silence. Min Kim stood in the center of the hangar, no longer wearing his combat suit. Instead, he wore simple black clothing that allowed free movement. The ceremonial blade of his ancestor hung at his side alongside a modern combat knife. Admiral Kale approached slowly, carrying his own traditional weapon, a plasma sword used by Dominion officers for centuries. The energy blade hummed with deadly power as he activated it. You could have chosen to honor your promises without this fight, Min Kim said quietly. Why did you accept my challenge? Because I am tired of living without honor, Kale replied. Your ancestor was a better warrior than I will ever be. He deserved better from us. Min Kim drew his ancestor's ceremonial blade. The ancient metal gleamed with inner light, responding to the touch of Dae Kim's bloodline. Then let us finish what should have been settled 300 years ago. The two warriors circled each other slowly. Around them, the crowd of Dominion crew members watched, in complete silence. This was not just a fight between two individuals. This was a test of everything their civilization claimed to believe. Admiral Kale struck first, his plasma sword cutting through the air in a blazing arc. Min Kim moved like water, flowing around the attack and counterstriking with speed that seemed impossible. The ceremonial blade rang against the plasma sword, somehow able to block the energy weapon without being destroyed. They fought across the hangar deck, their weapons creating a deadly dance of light and shadow. Admiral Kale was skilled, trained in combat from childhood like all Dominion officers. But Min Kim fought with techniques passed down through generations, moves that combined human adaptability with ancient Dominion martial arts. The fight lasted only minutes, but to the watching crew it seemed like hours. Both warriors showed incredible skill and determination. But gradually, Min Kim's superior training and the power of his ancestor's blade began to tell. Admiral Kale's plasma sword was knocked from his hands. He fell to his knees, breathing heavily, with Min Kim's ceremonial blade at his throat. You fought with honor, Min Kim said quietly. That is more than your people have shown mine in 50 years. The hangar fell completely silent. Everyone waited to see if the human would deliver the killing blow that combat law allowed. Instead, Min Kim lowered his weapon and stepped back. I did not come here to kill honorable warriors, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hangar. I came here to restore the honor that was lost. He looked around at the hundreds of Dominion crew members watching. Your admiral fought bravely, even knowing he would likely die. That is the kind of courage my ancestor admired in your people. It is the reason he chose to serve alongside you instead of against you. Min Kim sheathed his ancestor's blade and helped Admiral Kale to his feet. The question now is whether you will choose to be worthy of that courage. Admiral Kale stood slowly, his breathing still heavy from the combat. Around the hangar deck, hundreds of his crew members watched in stunned silence. Never before had they seen their commanding officer defeated in single combat, yet somehow, this moment felt different from a simple military defeat. Min Kim walked to the center of the hangar where everyone could see and hear him clearly. He no longer looked like the terrifying infiltrator who had cut through their security forces. Instead, he appeared as what he truly was, a young man carrying the weight of his people's survival on his shoulders. "I want you all to understand why I came here," Min Kim said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. "Not for revenge, though my people have suffered greatly. Not for conquest, though I could have killed everyone on this ship if that had been my goal." He gestured toward Admiral Kale, who was accepting medical attention from his officers but remained standing. "I came here because 300 years ago your people and mine made a sacred agreement. My ancestor gave his life believing that promise would be kept." Lieutenant Hera stepped forward from the crowd of officers. "What proof do we have that these treaties actually exist? How do we know you are telling the truth about these ancient agreements?" Min Kim reached into his clothing and pulled out a small data device. "This contains copies of the original treaty documents signed by your own Dominion Council. It also contains the complete military records of Dae Kim's service, including mission reports written by Dominion commanders who fought alongside him." He activated the device and holographic images appeared in the air above the hangar deck. The watching crew could see document after document, treaties, battle reports, commendations, and testimonials from Dominion officers praising Dae Kim's courage and skill. Commander Voss studied the documents with growing amazement. "These records show that Dae Kim saved over 50,000 Dominion lives during his years of service. He personally rescued 3 colony ships from pirate attacks. He held the Cathara Pass against impossible odds for 6 days until reinforcements arrived. And in exchange," Min Kim said quietly, "your leaders promised that humanity would be welcomed as equals in the galactic community. They swore that no harm would come to human worlds under Dominion protection." The holographic documents showed the actual treaty language, written in the formal style used for the most important Dominion agreements. Every crew member could read the promises their ancestors had made. "Instead of protection you have given us 50 years of systematic extermination," Min Kim continued. "You have destroyed human colonies, scattered families across the galaxy, and hunted survivors like criminals. You have taken the name of my honored ancestor and used it to justify the murder of his descendants." The hangar fell silent as the weight of his words settled over the crowd. Many crew members looked uncomfortable as they realized the true nature of their war against humanity. Admiral Kale stepped forward, his voice rough but determined. "What you say is true. We have dishonored ourselves and betrayed the memory of your ancestor. The question is, what can be done about it now?" "That depends on you," Min Kim replied. "I am prepared to offer your people a choice that my ancestor never had the chance to make." He walked closer to Admiral Kale, speaking directly to him, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You can continue this war of extermination. You can complete the genocide you started and try to erase all evidence of your broken promises. Many human worlds have already fallen, and the survivors are scattered and weak." The young human's eyes hardened with determination. "But if you choose that path, you will face consequences your leaders never imagined. I am not the only descendant of Dae Kim. There are others trained as I was trained, carrying the same sacred weapons and the same knowledge of your weaknesses." Commander Voss looked alarmed. "How many others?" "Enough," Min Kim said simply. "My people have spent generations preparing for this moment. We knew that someday we would need to claim the honor that was promised to us. We have studied your technology, your tactics, your ships, and your customs. We know you better than you know yourselves." He gestured around the hangar deck. "One human infiltrator defeated over 100 of your best soldiers and reached your most sacred spaces. Imagine what dozens of such warriors could accomplish if they were forced to choose war over peace." The threat was clear, but Min Kim's tone remained calm and reasonable. "However, I did not come here to threaten you. I came to offer you a second choice, the chance to honor your ancestors' promises and restore the alliance that should have existed for 3 centuries. Admiral Kale felt a spark of hope despite everything that had happened. "What kind of alliance?" The Same one your leaders promised to Dae Kim. Humanity and the Dominion working together as equals, sharing knowledge and resources, protecting each other from common enemies. Min Kim paused, then added, "But this time, the agreement will be enforced by warriors who understand the cost of broken promises." Lieutenant Hera looked puzzled. "What do you mean by enforced?" Min Kim drew his ancestor's ceremonial blade once more, but this time he held it reverently rather than as a weapon. "The descendants of Dae Kim will serve as guardians of the treaty. We will work with Dominion forces to ensure that both sides honor their commitments. Think of us as ... peacekeepers. Peacekeepers armed with Sacred Order weapons and trained in our most classified combat techniques." Commander Voss observed warily. "Exactly." Min Kim smiled for the first time since removing his mask. "We learned long ago that peace without the ability to enforce it is merely a temporary ceasefire. The alliance between our peoples will be strong because both sides will know the consequences of betrayal." Admiral Kale considered the offer carefully. The alternative, continued war against an enemy that clearly understood Dominion weaknesses, better than anyone had imagined, seemed far worse than accepting human partners who demanded equal treatment. "What assurance do we have that humanity will honor this new alliance?" he asked. "The same assurance my ancestor had when he trusted your people's word," Min Kim replied. "None at all, except the hope that both sides have learned from past mistakes." He sheathed the ceremonial blade and looked around at the watching crew members. "But I can offer you something more concrete. If the Dominion agrees to honor the original treaty and ends all attacks on human worlds, I will share the intelligence I gathered from your ship's computer systems." "What intelligence?" Admiral Kale asked sharply. "Complete battle plans for your remaining campaigns against human colonies. Ship deployment schedules, attack patterns, supply line information." Min Kim's expression grew serious. "Everything your enemies would need to destroy your fleet and cripple your empire." The hangar erupted in shocked murmurs. The crew realized that this young human had not just defeated their security forces. He had potentially gathered enough information to destroy the entire Dominion war effort. "You would give us back our own stolen intelligence?" Commander Voss asked suspiciously. "I would give you more than that," Min Kim replied. "I would give you the locations of the hidden human fleets that have been preparing to strike at your supply bases. I would share the defense plans of human worlds you haven't discovered yet. I would tell you everything that could be used to complete your genocide." He paused to let the magnitude of his offer sink in. "In exchange, you stop the killing and honor the promises made to my ancestor. You treat humanity as equals instead of enemies. You prove that the Dominion still has some honor left." Admiral Kale looked around at his officers and crew. He could see uncertainty and hope warring in their faces. For 50 years, they had been told that humans were dangerous enemies who had to be destroyed. Now they were being offered the chance to turn those enemies into powerful allies. "I cannot make this decision alone," he said finally. "This requires approval from the Dominion High Council." "Then contact them," Min Kim said. "Tell them that the descendant of Dae Kim offers them a choice between honor and destruction. Tell them that the future of both our peoples hangs in the balance." He walked toward the hangar exit, then turned back for one final statement. "I will remain on this ship until you have an answer. But know this, whether your leaders choose alliance or continued war, humanity will survive. The only question is whether the Dominion will survive alongside us." As Min Kim left the hangar, Admiral Kale realized that everything had changed. The war against humanity could no longer be won through simple military force. The choice now was between accepting humans as equals or facing the consequences of their ancestors' broken promises. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same again.